Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I thought I videoed it and did not, is roll my little tube down at the top about a 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm just going to roll that down about a 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to open up this seam like that. Okay, so just where I stitched will give me a nice clean edge right there. Oh, you can't see that. Okay, so folded it down, and then I open this seam right like this. And then I'm just going to press that open. Again, does not have to be anywhere near perfect. Okay, so that's kind of what that looks like. Then I'm going to take my iron from where I am, and I'm just going to press this box just to make some nice square edges. Not great at sewing, but a nice square edge will make everything easier. All right, so there we go. That's what we've got all the way around. This is what it looks like on one side. This is where it's folded down a little bit and the stitch is opened, and then this is what it looks like on the other side of a box. Okay, so this is the next part, and it's just the slightest bit tricky. It's your elastic. I pre-cut 2 pieces of elastic. Black happened to be what I could find, and works great on the shark mask. So just roughly 7 inches, and this is gonna be the kind of mask that has the pieces that go over the ear. All right, so open the side of your mask here and stick your elastic inside. Okay, basically I'm trying to get this just to lie flat right up in that little flat seam area that I created. And you should just be able to kind of feel it being flat in there. On the first one, you can kind of reach inside and maneuver it around a little bit so that it's in here nice and flat like this. Okay, take a pin, don't stab yourself, and just pin that to where it kind of will lie flat. Now you're going to take the other piece of your elastic, and you want to kind of keep it on that same flat plane that you had on the other side so that it doesn't bunch up over the ears. Now bring it down to where, open your fabric up to where that seam is. Kind of pull it over flush to the edge. Hope you can see that, maybe right there. Okay, so I just pulled it down, laid it flat on that edge. I'm going to carefully hold that in place and fold that back up over it, still within this nice little crisp edge that we made a second ago. Gonna turn around and pin that. Okay, so it's gonna be like this, which looks a little wonky, but we're okay. So we're just gonna turn around to the other side next. We're gonna take this one inside on that nice little seam. The crisper you make that seam or that fold, the easier this part is. So I just take it and fold it back down on there, holding it flush and flat, and then I just pin it where it is, right like that. Okay. I have found that if you will pin a little further back than right on the edge, you'll keep from sewing your elastic in when you make your box here in a second. So just going to check this out, make sure it's nice and flat. I'm going to pull it around and I'm going to lay it in this little fold that I have down here. I'm going to carefully hold that so it doesn't bend up or anything, and I can pinch it on this side. And there goes the pin. Okay, so now this is what I've got. Kind of looks a little funky, but soon to be a mask. I'm going to pause us so I can get us back to the machine. Alright, so the next thing that I have found helps here is when you start out, you don't want it to have any tension or anything on it. You want it to be nice and flat. You can see the end of it's all bubbled up, and that's fine just to get started here. Okay. Again, I do a couple stitches forward, and then I go back up to catch that elastic in there, and then I'm going to go back across it. I like to double stitch it just because it needs to hold up. And then at this point, I'm just going to let the material lie flat and just go on down with my stitch here. As I start getting closer to the bottom, I'm going to take that material and take the bottom of it and just pull it taut, just like this, so that it will stitch straight. You can feel your elastic on the inside right here. Not a bad thing, just to check and make sure you're not stitching over the top of it. Just lift your foot there in the back, slide that out, snip your threads. Don't forget to take your pins out when you finish the side. We're going to do the same thing on the other side now. I tend to start with the bottom on the other side simply for the fact that I can keep it measured about the same place right here on my foot. Again, this is not an exact measurement. It probably is for somebody who knows what they're doing, but it is not for me. I'm going to rewind, go backwards here just a little bit, catch my elastic well. Going to just give this a little pull down at the bottom so I can make sure my fabric's pretty well lined up. Again, there's really no wrong way to do this. I can feel my elastic all the way over here. Pull it out, snip it, pins. Okay, so I'm gonna move the camera again. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is just flip this right side out. Just like this. I have found that if you kind of pull on the elastic, it pops your corners pretty easily, so you don't have to do a whole lot of work to get that turned to the right side. Okay, and so basically you have a cute little bag at this point. Okay, and I just realized I totally skipped a first step, but I'll show you on another one what to do to start with. It'll make it a little bit easier. So then I'm just going to press this flat. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is put in a nose piece. So this is just a 6-inch piece of floral wire. There's 32 a pack at Walmart for 97 cents, and you can get 3 out of each one. I tried glue drops and that did not work well for me. So if you can see, I just took some needle nose pliers and put a little curl in the end so it won't slip out of the pocket. So I just slide that up in the nice little pocket that I made and just push it to the top. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is just stitch right below this seam, just about a foot's width. Just put the material there, push your metal wire all the way up to the top so you don't break any needles doing it. Okay, so I'm just going to take that off of there and snip it. Okay, so you can just see a solid seam across from there. There's going to be lots of little ends like this. Probably someone who knew what they were doing would not have quite the mess I do, but I'm pretty good at the mess part of it. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is make the pleats. Okay, so when you make the pleats, you definitely want to start with the wire at the top, and you want to start on the non-pocket side. You want to start with what's going to be the front of the mask facing you. So you're just going to put your fingers underneath here, just like this, and you're just going to fold down. You can measure these if it bothers you. Otherwise, you'll kind of get in a rhythm of doing them just by eyeballing it. So I'm pinching that on the edge, and I'm sticking the needle through the pin through, ouch, my thumb and the material, and just making that about the same width. If it's really wonky and off, you can just adjust it as you go. Again, once these are on, you'll never even notice if your pleats aren't perfect. There is an advantage to using a random fabric with a random pattern. You won't see mistakes as much. There's also an advantage of using a fabric with a pattern that you can line things up easier with as well. So I've got 2 pleats made. I'm just going to take the third one and I'm going to pin that as well. And the third one, ouch, just pin that right over here like this and like this. Okay, so that's what we've got. And the good old iron that makes life just easier. And all right, so we are back to the sewing machine. Okay, I'm starting out with the backwards. Well, I was starting out with the backwards stitch, but I broke my thread. Hold on. Okay, let's try that again. So just gonna put that down. Gonna backwards stitch a little bit. Gives you a chance to reinforce your elastic one more time as well. Okay, we're just gonna pull that up and zip, and then I flip mine around. Okay, voila. Now, you can, don't forget to take your pins out. Okay, so you can, at this time, stop and be done with it. I'm clipping up some extra little threads here that are kind of annoying. Okay, so you can be done with it. You've got a mask. You've got a nose piece up here that's extremely pliable and well-fitting. You've got a pocket right here for your filter to go in. What I have found is there's one extra step I like to do that seems to just make the mask fit a little bit better. Give me just a second. Okay, so I have just a random snippet left of elastic, and this stuff's like gold right now, so I try not to waste any of it. It's roughly 3 inches long, and so I'm going to take that and take it back to the machine. Okay, on the filter side of the mask, I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to start this. Depending on how big your snippet is, roughly a finger-ish from the side. Okay, I'm changing my machine to a zigzag stitch, and I am placing that to where it's close to the back of the foot pedal, just so I know in distance reference. So I'm going to reverse. And then I'm going to obviously go back forward again. And reverse again. Okay. And then I'm going next to pull this pretty taut across the bottom of the mask. I'm going to switch back to a straight stitch, and I'm going to just run that, pull as tight as I can, and holding it with my other hand. And then I'm going to switch back as I get close to the end here. I've taken the tension off again, but I'm going to switch back to a zigzag stitch, right like that. And just really reinforce that. And then I'm going to pick that up and snip it. And what that does is it gives it a little bit, if I can show you, it gives the mask just a little bit of pull across the bottom, which really helps it seat well under our chins when we have them on. If by some chance somebody has any issues with the earpieces being too big, you can tell them to just pinch a piece like this and run a stitch through it a couple times, and that will shorten the earpieces if they're too big. You can also, if you want to get adventurous, take a longer piece of elastic and attach it from one side to the other inside the mask, the same as you did this. Instead of going top to bottom, you would go this side to this side, and the same at the bottom from this side to this side if you want a pull behind your head type mask. So this is it. I'll send you the 2 links to the videos that I watched, and you can see basically what I did. The one modification that I forgot to do was when I start out with my fabric on the short ends, just run a zigzag stitch. What that does is keep this from being a raw edge and probably won't come apart as quickly in the wash. So that'll just give the mask a little more longevity, but otherwise than that, it still works. I would recommend when you make this fold to make sure you have enough of a lip here that the filter can catch up underneath here if they're going to be adding a filter to it. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.